What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing good. In this video I'm gonna finish the CR250 engine. I got all the parts I need now on the bench, so let's get at it. So if you watched the last video, you know that this clutch basket is pretty much shot here. So it's got a bunch of notching in it, and also it's just completely loose there. So that's not good. So I got a brand new OEM clutch here. So I'm gonna start putting that in right now. So now I had everything all kind of loosely in there. Everything's in there the way it's supposed to go now, except for this gear here. So that one here, I'm gonna probably gonna wait to torque this until the new clutch basket is in and torqued, and then I'll use the new clutch holding tool I ordered to tighten this in. So I put a little bit of assembly lube on these bearings here. But with that said, all I'm going to do is take this new OEM clutch and I'm just going to start assembling it, because in the last video you kind of see me put it all together. It wasn't the parts that I'm going to use, but it still remains the same how you put these in. So just for reference, this nut here is torqued to 59 foot-pounds. So I got both of these torqued now. I got that one torqued and that one torqued. So now I can move on to installing the clutch pack. I got this all put together now, the whole clutch assembly. So you probably noticed I didn't soak the friction discs here. The reason for that is because when you fill this up, it's probably that full of oil. And when you rebuild these, you're obviously gonna, when you got everything assembled, you're gonna kick it over nice and easy just to make sure everything is functioning correctly. When you do that, there's gonna be oil all over this, and it is eventually just gonna seep down in between your friction discs and the plates. So something you can do to help that is just put the back tire on the ground on the stand and jam that. Pull your clutch in, put it in first gear, and just lightly kick it over. So that will move all this, and then your plates in there will stay stationary, and that'll help the oil kind of work its way in. So I don't think it's necessary to soak these discs before you put it in. So next is going to be getting this here plate cover onto the right hand case half. But before that, I'm going to tighten down the water pump. So when you do that, there's a little spot back here for an 8mm wrench. So you just back that up, and then I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on there, just because use a lot of Loctite on these, but there's a lot of things you don't want coming loose on these bikes, that's for sure, especially when they're rotating as fast as they do. Especially a two-stroke engine. So you just back it up there, 10mm socket, and just give it a snug. It's probably, there is a torque spec again, but I don't have a wrench, a torque wrench that goes that low. So with that all done, I've got my dowels in place here. So I'm gonna do a little coat of grease around here and a little coat of grease around here, and then put the gasket in there, and then I should be ready to bolt everything up. Now I've got the water pump plate ready to go on. So this is pretty easy to remember. So it's just gasket, plate, and then gasket. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease on the faces. So I'm definitely gonna call this bottom end done. The other cover's not on there, but that's gonna be put on later because I gotta put the clutch on after. So all this is put in here, and I got this looking good. So now it's time to move on to the top end. So I'm gonna start putting the cylinder studs in. So with these cylinder studs, I'm gonna go with the double nut technique to tighten them in. It calls for 84 to 120 inch-pounds. So that translates to roughly, I don't know, 12 foot-pounds. I don't have the wrench small enough, so I'm gonna have to do this by hand. So I'm just gonna use a 3/8 ratchet and just give it a good torque in there. I don't want to give it too much because these cases again are just aluminum. So got my brand new cylinder out on the bench here. So next step is going to be putting the piston in. So what you want to do there is this Vertex piston. It doesn't come with any instructions as to where to face that arrow. So if you get one of these, the arrow goes to the exhaust. I checked on the old piston there, and the arrow was pointing towards the exhaust on that one, and the little ring tabs are on the back of the old one, and the arrow is pointing towards the exhaust. So that's which way the arrow points on these ones. So next step is you want to take your rings and you want to measure the end gap. So what you want to do is just take your ring and compress it and push it into your cylinder, and then take some feeler gauges, and you want to measure in between those 2 points while it's in the cylinder, and just make sure it's within the minimum spec of what Vertex tells you it's supposed to be. So the ring end gap checked out, it's within spec. So I'm gonna go ahead and install them on the piston here. So make sure when you put these rings on, there's lettering on it. There's a T right there. So that goes up. And it doesn't really matter which ring goes where. So I'll put this one on the bottom first. And there's little pins on the back of the piston here. So you'll see where the ring squishes in. That's where that ring end gap is supposed to wind up in that little tab. So just keep that in mind when you're putting these together. And the top ring, same thing. for that again. So again, when you put this in, it's going to be with the arrow pointing towards the exhaust. And it also comes with a new bearing for the piston. So you want to put that in. Put a little bit of assembly lube on it. That all ready to go. And you always want to keep a towel or something inside inside here while you're installing your piston, because if you drop one of the little circlips there, then you don't want it going down into your freshly rebuilt bottom end that you'll have to split open again if you drop that clip in there. Speaking of the clips, there they are. And you got the wrist pin. So what you'll want to do is install one circlip, and then you can just put the piston on and then push the wrist pin through, and that circlip will stop it. And when you're putting these circlips in, you never want to install them with the gap like that, because the up and down of the piston could potentially squish it and pop it out. So you always want to try and face it. I try and face it down, but you can go straight up, I guess, but I try and face it down anyway. So you really want to watch too when you're putting these in, because if you use a tool, you can actually scratch the side of the piston. And if you are wearing gloves, you should probably take them off for this part, because that little clip, it will pinch the glove and take a piece of glove with it, which I just did. So now the clip's got to come back out so I can get that piece of glove out of there. So probably just do this with your bare hands, I'd say. You can use a tool. You see, I got it kind of ready to go in there. You can use a tool to push it down in there, but try not to use a tool to pry it and get it in there, because I know it's hard, but it's the last thing you want to do is score your brand new piston. Not a big deal, you can fix it, but you can kind of file it out or whatever, but you don't want to do that. Okay, so I got the one ring in there now. So again, you go arrow towards the exhaust. And you lube up the wrist pin a little bit. Get that all over. And then just line her up and slide it in there. There it goes, just like that. Probably can put some gloves on, back on for that part if you want. But so now you put the other clip in. So when you get your rings in, you want to make sure that you just they're all the way in, all the way seated in there. So you just take your screwdriver or whatever and just push on them. Make sure those aren't going to come out. You do not want those coming out at all. So with that done, you want to make sure these pins are lined up on the back of the cylinder here, or on the back of the piston. And when you put the cylinder on, that they're gonna go on these little dowels or whatever you want to call them. So at this point, you can take your little snap ring guard out there, and you're gonna want to. All you'll do is just take your cylinder and you put your whatever two-stroke oil you use. You just coat the cylinder, and then you should be able to just slide the cylinder right on. So I got that all in now. It looks great. So I was just cranking it over a little bit there now. It cranks over like super smooth, super easy, and that's what you want. And then when you let go your, you want that to return back nice and easy. So I know I've got everything put together correctly, because it's, like I said, it's just cranking over just super, super easy and smooth. So now I can go on to the head studs and put those on after I torque these down. So I got the head studs here now. So there's two different part numbers. There's 6 head studs altogether, but these two here go in the front. These are not recessed as much. There's a little bit of a groove cut out, but these other 4 are really recessed in there. So that's how you can tell. There's only 2 of these part number, and there's 4 of those ones. So that's how you can tell that. These are installed at 9 foot-pounds, and I'm going to be using some anti-seize when I put them in, because that's what got me into trouble with this here. That didn't come out. So that really got me into trouble. That's why you use never seize. So now that I got the studs torqued in, so now it's time to put the icing on the cake on. So I'm going to put the head on now and torque all the nuts to 20 foot-pounds. So there it is, guys. The CR250 engine is done and ready to go back into the frame. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you want to see the rest of this build and you want to see the bike built back up, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. If you've already subscribed, thank you very much, and thanks a lot for watching.